Speaking moistly, speaking moistly, keep 2 meters apart. Speaking moistly, speaking moistly.
Welcome to Speaking Moistly, everybody. It is Greg Wycliffe with my co-host Mark Peralovis. How you doing today?
Hey, wait
Mark?
a second. What? I didn't know that we were changing the role of the show. I'm pretty sure that you're my co-host. Hold on a second.
What do you mean? We're both co-hosts. There's not a main host and then a co-host. It's a host.
Oh,
there
I
were
see,
two
I
co-hosts
see.
to make up two hosts.
I
Two hosts
see.
to the show.
I saw, like, I'm blue and you're the
Red.
Yeah. Red?
I don't know. Well, we got a new setup over here. Look at all this cool stuff. We're going through 3 topics today. Starting, of course, with the mass hysteria, everyone losing their minds. Or sorry, I mean the Omicron variant, and along with that seems to coincide with you were saying about in the green room, this new sort of everyone. Oh, rapid tests. Did you get your tests?
Rapid testing. Yeah. Well, this last week, if you had asked somebody, like, what's with the rapid test thing, or do you have a rapid test, or somebody would think maybe you're working in a mine or working at a remote camp or something like that, because they've been using rapid tests across the country, right? Mm-hmm. But now it's hit mainstream. They're at LCBOs, they're at libraries, they're like sending them home from school. And I did a little video. 2-minute video talking about how the tests aren't calibrated to pick up variants of concern. They're not recommended for use at home. They're not recommended for self-administration of the nasal swab. And they're sent. I know, right?
I didn't know any of this.
Oh no, I couldn't believe it. I thought there's no way this is true. This is probably right-wing crazy propaganda. I'm going to go get my test right now and I'm going to prove that this is crazy. There's no way it says that. And I opened it up and I was like, holy freaking, right on the middle of the second page, right square in the middle of the document.
It says that.
Not for home use, not for self-administration, will not pick up variants of concern, not tested for variants of concern.
Yeah. I mean, we all know how this works. The more tests, the more cases, the more hysteria. So I think it's very interesting that it's like, okay, everyone go get tested right now. So
well, and the lineups.
Panic.
You'd think people were like standing in line for a Christmas present or something like that, like Christmas present for your kids or something like that.
For the new PS5. Yeah, we're in line for the new PS5. No, we're in line to stick a Q-tip up our nose. No, I don't think that's not how it works. Is it? Is that how it works with the Q-tip? No.
It is. Yeah.
There's,
there's a whole and so, like, and if you're lucky enough to get one of these tests and you take it home and you're like,
lucky,
I've got a sniffle, I think that maybe I should test, and then you get a positive, buddy. Boy, howdy, what do you win? Oh, that's 2 weeks at home and another test with a PCR test sometime. Like, what is the incentive here? Why are people lining up for this? Are they all paid actors, or this just the mass psychosis is completely taken hold?
Crazy how many people. I think it was a clip in Peterborough where they're just, the guy's driving literally around the block, and it's an entire circle around the block. And I think just for, like, basics, avoiding getting the flu, avoiding getting the cold, basics, oh, I'm symptomatic, I'm going to go get a test and wait outside in the cold for hours. Yeah. I'm symptomatic, I'm going to wait outside in the cold for hours.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, there are people out there, and that seems like another funny thing. They're waiting inside in, like, Yorkdale Mall. If you were like, listen, I'm going to go to Yorkdale Mall, I'm going to go Christmas shopping really quick and, be in and out in 20 minutes. No. These people are waiting for hours, waiting in line inside the mall. It's
certainly confusing.
They think
I was going to say it's certainly confusing. Like, what is the big sort of relief that you take the test and you're negative? And you know what I mean? Like,
evidently people aren't reading the insert.
While we're on the topic of Omicron, like, there's this weird, we can test to know which variant it is. Like, we can, and you said that these tests can't do that, but I don't know if you noticed this, there was a couple people on Twitter and they both happened to, like, write for CBC or something like this.
Yeah, I did see.
They're like, they're listing their symptoms, and they're like, oh, the one lovely lady said, I talked to some doctors and they confirmed it was Omicron. Yeah. And it's like, question. I tweeted at her saying, like, could you go into detail there of
how did you
I know that you love science and you write for CBC, so maybe you could clarify how you knew it was the Omicron variant. I think there's a lot of scientists around the world who would love to know what these couple of doctors said to you to know that it was Omicron.
Yeah. So with the testing, the whole thing is with Omicron, it used to be for a PCR test or for the tests, it was 3 primers. And so they're saying with Omicron, one of these primers doesn't show up, and that's like the test. So like if it's negative, so it turned a negative test into a positive test. That's what they're saying is detecting Omicron. That's what I like. That was my response to it. Right. Like, like that Jennifer Lawrence clip. Right. Like, skeptical.
Part of the reason I don't want to get the test, and people might say, oh my God, you're outrageous. It's like, I don't want to get a false positive and not get to have a good time during Christmas. You know what I mean? Like, because it's like, if I get a false positive and it's like, okay, I guess I'm spending Christmas alone then.
Yeah. Well, they can just say you've been exposed. That's that. Like there were people who were keeping their kids home all last week because if they're exposed, then they can't go visit anywhere. Like they can't go to family, they can't whatever. So the people were just pulling their kids from school in order to go visit their families over Christmas because they didn't want to have public health it's instituting rules that had them in isolation.
All right. We have to go on to the next topic, but I think what's so creepy about all this is whether people realize it or not, they are lining up to become even more terrified. Like they're kind of lining up like, hey, I am a what's the term when you're really worried about getting sick all the time?
Hypochondriac.
You're a hypochondriac.
Bam.
You're lining up to validate and enable your own hypochondria.
Yeah, well, it's the state behaving in a way that a Munchausen's by proxy afflicted mother would behave. Oh, you're here's the sky is falling. Here's a helmet. Do you know how many airplanes fall out of the sky? Well, it's enough that you should wear this helmet. Like that's not healthy. You shouldn't raise children like that.
And we love to do predictions. Do you think there's going to be more restrictions for Ontario? Because Ford announced more restrictions, as many people probably know.
Last night, Quebec just locked everything down. They shut down schools because Quebec citizens, they go to school a little later than Ontario does. Ontario was out on Friday. But do I think there's going to be more restrictions? Yeah, they're setting up for it. And there's no real reason. Like the Omicron is not.
I'm so tired of the name already.
Yeah, it's terrible. But the whole idea is that they're saying it's as deadly as Delta or whatever, and there's no evidence to say that. And I think CNN reported one person who died with Omicron like yesterday, and this is the first person in the States. And the whole thing is just unbelievable. Like I can't believe
it's like the narrative is just crumbling, and it's crazy that to remedy this, they're just lying more aggressively.
Joe Biden's doing a speech today talking about who knows what he's going to say at this point in time.
Yeah, it's crazy because like even when they announced all these lockdown measures in Ontario, the medical guy, he looks like Vladimir Lenin, but
Moore.
that guy. Yeah, Moore. Yeah, Dr. Moore. And he's like, this is very serious. This is very horrible. It's horrible. It's horrible. It spreads. Yeah. By the way, there's only like 1,000 cases in Ontario, and only 2 of those 1,000s are in hospital. And is it even critical condition? I don't know.
Yep.
But
they locked down all of Ottawa for 1 million people, for 4 people in the hospital.
And it's like, for people who talk about the science, it's like the science does not really. And as you were just saying, it's strange how they're saying, "Oh well, it's more deadly. It's deadly. It's horrible." And it's like this is literally not based on anything other than like terrifying rhetoric of you trying to terrify people.
It's just rhetoric. Like they're writing a script and they get in front of the cameras and they go with the script and then that's it. And like sometimes they even tell you that they say, I don't even know why I bring all these papers. I just read whatever they put in front of me.
And in Ontario, they instead of using the term lockdown during that press conference, the term lockdown only came up once and it was from a journalist. But they have circuit breakers is a term that they use. Circuit breakers. However, over onto our next topic, Quebec. The lockdowns are there and they're not beating around the bush. They're saying, this is pretty well. This is lockdown. We're going back to lockdown, folks.
Yeah. I can't believe all the things that are closed, the restaurants, the
Yep.
bars, the businesses, small businesses, but
Hmm.
Amazon booming, Walmart booming, that's essential, right?
Yep.
Countdown to banning the unvaccinated from the grocery stores in Quebec, right? Like, I mean,
Yeah.
they backed off of that in New Brunswick, didn't
Yeah.
they? But
They did. They
in
did.
Quebec, they
Why
have
did
that
that happen, by the way? Because
pushback, they said.
a lot of people pushed back and said, "Hey,
I hope.
we're not going to put up with this."
I hope so. I hope so. But in Quebec, anyway, they had uh, oh, what is it? Curfews,
Hmm.
and people were complying with that. And so, like, to me, curfews are kind of on the same level. Like, how does now? I mean, it's not very off. I'm a little older, right?
Right.
It's not very often that I'm going out at 8 o'clock at night now. These days, right? Sometimes I'll go out to see my brother and stuff. So like an 8 o'clock curfew to a 40-year-old is different than an 8 o'clock curfew to a 20-year-old.
Yeah, but that's
But
regardless, though. That's
well,
just because it's not part of your lifestyle, like it's
no,
still.
but I believe fully that the people who have it as part of their lifestyle should be able to go out to the bars and should be able to
Yeah.
go out to the whatever time. How does the virus tell time? Like, does the virus have a clock?
Yeah.
Right?
And and back to Ontario for a hot minute. Like they have very specific rules for businesses like restaurants not being able to be open past 11. So
Mhm.
I just think it's crazy because when I think of the holiday season, I think of going out to the bar and catching up with people who I haven't seen in a long time.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it's like that's just gone. Like no more, only pickup after 11. And what's going to happen?
Awful.
There's going to be more house parties. There's
Yeah,
going to be more house parties, and then
yeah. Is that an
I'm
invitation?
hoping this isn't going to happen, but it probably will. It's probably going to be a whole bunch of cops showing up, shaming these people,
Well,
shaming
don't answer the
them.
door, right?
Well, but
Put
still, like
put a little
that's
like,
gonna hit,
please contact my lawyer.
that's gonna hit the news cycle, and
Oh well.
because all
Oh
these
yeah,
tests are going out, it's
yeah.
gonna say, oh wow, spike in cases. Why? Because those university students had a house party
Oh,
during the
in
holidays.
Guelph, they definitely vilified the university students last year too.
Hmm.
Anybody with a New Year's party, like, don't have a New Year's party, it's terrible, and this and that.
Yeah.
Uh, I don't know that the saber rattling is going to be. It is fruitful. It is. It's so effective. I can't believe how effective it is. Like, I go to the grocery store. I'm like, I
The,
was outside the other day, and there was an elderly woman walking around with a
yeah.
mask. I was like, you own the internet.
Yeah. It's
Read us.
and they also have to saber rattle because they're obviously not going to compromise. They're not going to say, yeah, we were wrong.
We were
like
wrong.
they're digging in their heels and they're saber
No,
rattling harder than ever
the
because
only way
that's their
this
only play. And
the only way this
it's
ends.
turning more people off, by the way.
It is. But the only
So,
way this ends is if the government declares victory. They're not going to be like, you know what,
mm,
we didn't win, and the virus is still rampant and stuff. And well, I guess nobody's listening anyway, so do what you want.
mm.
Like, they're going to declare before they lose control completely. They'll declare victory and decide, and like say, well, we won, yay! We
But
got herd immunity.
the other option, the other like what happens when the government loses? People showing up at your house potentially because they're so upset. We're going to move on to the third topic, of course, which is
Yeah,
people showing up to protest at Doug Ford's house. Now, this isn't the first time this has happened. I think
no,
it's important to mention that
yeah.
because, any news item that's in the news cycle will be reinvented to benefit certain groups and not
Well,
others, right?
yeah, it's interesting because they're framing Ford as a sympathetic figure. Like, poor Doug Ford, he hasn't been able to get into his house all weekend and
Yeah.
even a lot of Monday. And
Yeah.
I was like, boo hoo. Like, do you understand that Ford has shut down businesses? Like,
Hmm.
and like they've been unable
That's like a modest way to put it too. To
well, I
like
mean,
shut
right,
down
like
businesses, like he's kind of decimated
entire sectors.
entire sectors.
But
Yeah.
is that just on Doug Ford, or is there other things that we maybe don't see? And I'm not trying to absolve Ford. I'm trying to say, how deep does this go? Where does
Hmm.
it end? And like, is that like, if you're the guy who the buck stops with, if you're the premier of the province,
Yeah.
you don't get to say it was Dr. Moore's responsibility. Like, he
Sure.
told me the wrong advice. No, like, if you thought it was the wrong advice, then you had a responsibility to not do it.
I think if you're not, breaking any laws by protesting outside of his house, then I don't
Mhm.
see the problem with it because, and I'm not going to name names, but there were certain right-wing pundits who were talking about Christine Elliott and protesting outside of her house, which is she's an MPP in
She's
Ontario.
the Minister of Health.
She's the Minister of Health, and people were protesting outside of her house and making a lot of noise at night. And some right-wing pundits were saying, "Oh, no, there's a way to do this. Go to the legislature. Go to the legislature. What? and protesting and yell at the janitor of the building. The building didn't do this. The building didn't make these decisions." Mm-hmm. Who was it? It was the people. It was the chief medical officer. It was Doug Ford. And you might be right. Technically, it might be somebody else making those decisions. But still, I like how this target of accountability is going to. There's a reason people are doing this, because other strategies haven't worked.
Well, and I mean, this one hasn't worked yet either, right? And I hope, but I'm not against it. I think that certainly there needs to be some kind of accountability. And when the public figures who are steering this ship are steering it so poorly, and they don't listen to criticism, they don't
poorly.
Yeah, but they don't explain it either. You know what I mean? Like, they're doing badly. We have bad outcomes, and people are done with it, I think.
Yeah. And
they continue to double down.
On the contrary, they don't even. It's not only that they don't explain it; they ridicule and dismiss anyone who has questions. Like anyone who kind of challenges these decisions, they will ridicule and dismiss, and they'll throw them in the basket of deplorables or the anti-vaxxers or what have you. And which is, we don't have to get into how ridiculous it is to just broad brushstrokes. Oh, so you're anti-vax. Like, no, you're ridiculous.
It's so effective.
Okay,
it's so effective.
That's a ridiculous label to throw on anybody who thinks that.
But it's not, though. It's so sophisticated. Like, honestly, the psychological warfare that we're being subject to right now is so sophisticated. It's unbelievable, because it's driving families apart. Friends that you've had for, friends that I've had for 20 years, no longer friends. Why? Because I didn't take COVID seriously enough. That's a quote from one of them. Another one wouldn't talk to me anymore. Really? Like, honestly, some people don't take this virus seriously enough. And I was like, some people, like one of the two people in this chat who is not you. And then they never responded.
Can you just speak to me directly instead of this
like, how old are we?
This cryptic, like, childish ridiculousness?
Well, then another friend of mine had an argument with me at a party, and everyone had been drinking or whatever. And this is going back years now. It doesn't matter.
Okay. But this was before all the.
This was before madness. COVID. Oh yeah, okay. This was Trump. Oh, how dare you? So I went through all this with Trump, right? Like the COVID thing. People most of the people I know are like, oh yeah, it's bullshit. Nobody was like, you monster. The one person I mentioned there. But like, over Trump, somebody said, you know what Texas really needs? Universal health care. And I was like, ha. Like, I was just totally, it was like a Christmas, and everybody's sitting around, and I was like eating spinach dip, and I thought that was the most funny thing. Like, Texas needs health. Okay, sure. Like, yeah, that's going to solve their problems like a hole in the head. Like, and you can't have fundamentally, you can't have my argument was, you can't have universal health care with open borders. And I said, look at Canada. and
what'd they say to that?
He said, the best healthcare in the world. I was like, okay.
The best healthcare in the world. Yeah. That's why the hospitals.
There's no arguing.
That's why the hospitals have been overwhelmed for during flu season for years, which no one talks about. But,
it's amazing. We have to lose all of our freedoms because of the hospital capacity.
Yeah,
the best healthcare in the world. You moron.
I was messaging a friend the other day where it's like, so essentially we are just going to count flu cases and really exaggerate every single death that's happened. Because, I mean, it's like, if you look at the previous years, it's like, is it that notable? Is it that different?
Hospitals used to run at 110% all the time.
Yeah.
Like 110%. We were releasing reports in 2019 talking about how efficient Ontario hospitals are, because the efficiency of Ontario hospitals was celebrated. Like, we're doing more with less. I think the report was entitled "More with Less: The Efficiency Success of Ontario Hospitals." I was like, this is so good. Look what we could do with no staff. Like, imagine. And I was like, imagine if a crisis ever hits.
Yeah. That's this. Yeah. All these issues have very deep roots. But before we go, maybe we should actually give some advice or guidance. It is the holiday, Merry Christmas season. that scenario where you're at the dinner table and then maybe the discussion comes up, or maybe you're in a Zoom call and the discussion comes up about all this madness. You know, what's the strategy people should have? They have hostile family members. Why are you taking this seriously? Why don't you
tell
have
them
your
double
shots
tell them
yet?
you're double jabbed.
So you're saying just kind of, you know, just
Checkmate.
lie. Just lie to them.
Checkmate, family. Well, I mean, you know, what does it matter?
I have 5 doses.
Yeah, like, do you have
I
your
have
boosters?
5
I'm
doses.
boosted. I can't believe you put us all at risk like this, Grandma.
Yeah.
Right? Turn the table on them.
But I think that is a good question, because I don't really know how to answer that question. What do you do when you're dealing with hostile friends or family?
Oh my goodness, you bite your tongue. You have to have two maps to operate in the world. And if you want to keep those relationships, then you bite your tongue. And if you don't want to keep those relationships, then you burn them down, and you burn them down through demanding they take you as seriously as you're expected to take the mainstream media. And like, it just doesn't work like that, right? They have to go through their own hero journey.
I think there's got to be a little bit of in between there, because you just kind of
can try.
You kind of gave the two extremes: either bite your tongue or burn it all down.
Right? No, but there's no. Once you start that, there's no stopping it. Once you start it, there's no stopping it, because they'll needle you. Because now you're an anti-vaxxer. Now you're up.
I'm thinking about the scenarios I've been in where I've tried to approach the I think gently, and then by the end of the conversation, it's usually going to
there's no gently.
Everything's burning.
You burn it. You nuke it, baby. Like, if you're gonna nuke it.
I think the one thing you can do on the biting your tongue end is just ask questions. Like, you know, don't actually be combative. Just be like, well, what do you think about this and that?
Yeah, right. No, because then they'll see you as evasive. Like, honestly, it's about perception right now. Like, okay, in Nazi Germany, if they were like, "Hail Hitler," and you're like, right?
Yeah, I don't know if that's such a good. Yeah, I don't know if I like that guy so much. You don't like mein Fleur?
What?
You don't like mein Fleur?
Do you remember Hans? Did you ever watch The Sound of Music?
No.
Hans in The Sound of Music?
No.
Okay, so the whole thing, Hans is dating Liesel, Liesel's the older one. So
are we going to go over this whole thing?
It's important. Because it matters, right? All Hans is taken by the Nazi propaganda. And at the end of the movie, Hans and Liesel are dating and they're escaping, and he sees them. Spoiler alert. We used to watch The Sound of Music every Christmas at my grandmother's house. So Hans and Liesel are dating, and then the family is escaping. They're escaping Nazism, and Hans finds them, and he's got the whistle, and she's silently imploring him, like, don't blow the whistle, right? And he's so taken, he's like, boop, 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 and he blows the whistle. And so, like, that's where we're at, man. Like if you identify yourself, right? If you imploringly look at them and go, please look at what you're doing, they will blow the whistle and say, everybody, look, there's an anti-vaxxer, get him. So if you want to have dinner with your family, enjoy the hell out of having dinner with your family. And if somebody wants to talk about being back, say, yeah, I got boosted, man, for sure. Unless, I mean, if they're asking for their health reasons and you don't want to lie to them, well, I mean, that's a whole other kettle of fish, right? Like,
I think that's actually really good advice. If you actually want to enjoy a normal sort of Christmas dinner,
enjoy the
hell interaction, then like try to avoid it entirely.
Yeah, because you have to have two maps of how to work in the world right now.
Yeah, because you're reminding me of a strategy that I've naturally developed when dealing with friends and families, which is like, you know, I'm not going to bring up politics because I don't want to lose respect for you.
I mean, one thing you can say to maybe give some closure to this, if somebody asks you and you say, listen, you know, I'm really not interested in sharing my status, and take that to mean whatever you want, but I'm healthy and I'm safe to be here, and I'm not interested in sharing my status, and I really don't want to talk about COVID because, you know, it's just overdone. And you know, I'm sure everybody's got their opinion, and I just want to enjoy Christmas. Like, that's probably the best way. If you want to just enjoy Christmas, just enjoy Christmas, right? There's something to that. There's something, and I said this on my show this morning, like, you create and inhabit the world that you create. And the more you let the mainstream media paint those pictures for you, the less of a say you have in it. So if you want to enjoy Christmas family, right? Yeah. Give big hugs and to the people who will let you, right? And high fives and celebrate with those who it matters most, right? Yeah. And that's probably the best thing, right? And then on Boxing Day, go nuclear. No, not really. Not really. No.
This was such a wholesome Christmas message, I think. And I do, just to add to it, I think it's important not to get sucked in for people on our side or people who are, who challenge the narrative. I think it's important not to get sucked into the dehumanization that's happening where we really kind of cast aside people. Oh, these are idiots and they're, just dumb. And, there's no saving them. Our side can't slip into that because that's not, we almost like stoop to their level in a sick sense.
Yeah.
Mark.
Well, and just to build on that, and then we can go, everybody has to go through their own hero journey. Everybody has to go and go through and discover this for themselves. You can't do it for somebody.
That's very true.
Right? Like you can tell them maybe, and they might believe you, but in believing you, they'll start their journey. Right. But it's not done. And they'll wake up at a different rate and with different things than you did. And like there's phases of this, like there's phases of understanding what's happened, but fundamentally we've been lied to on a level that I think is incomprehensible. Right. And realizing that is difficult and looking at that just for the COVID stuff and for the broader stuff, it
takes time. It takes time.
Yeah, it does.
It takes time.
Yep.
And
it's a process.
Yeah. And the best thing you can do is kind of lead by example, just by living your life and being there whenever they want to talk. All right, Mark, where can they find us?
They can find me at canadapoly.com and they can find us at speakingmoistly.co. And you should check it out because things are changing around here as evident by the new outlook or the new layout, etc. And
very fancy new layout.
Where can they find you?
You can find us at our Twitters as well, at GDub and Mark Paralavis. You can find me on YouTube at Greg Wycliffe, on Instagram at Greg Wycliffe, and then my TikTok is also the same as my Twitter here. All right.
Perfect.
Amazing. We'll have Mr. JT play us out.
Keep 2 meters apart, speaking moistly.